Now, Ms. Alicia Herbert is the Gender Envoy and Director of the Education, Gender and Equality at the Commonwealth and Development Office. Alicia has 20 years of experience in international development. Prior to joining the Department of International Development, now the FCDO, in 1999, she worked with a range of organizations, including the World Bank and the Policy Studies Institute. She was recently awarded the Order of the British Empire, and Ms. Herbert joins us on now to talk a bit about her work in gender and equality. Ms. Herbert, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
Now, gender, equality, education, policy. Tell us a little bit about your work over, what, 20 years, 30 years?
Yes, so, I've been involved in international development and foreign policy over the course of the last 20, 25 years, posted in different parts of sub-Saharan Africa and also working in the UK. And fundamentally what it's about is ensuring that the rights that we have that's been bestowed on us are actually fulfilled. I've focused in particularly in the last few years on issues around education and gender equality and a whole range of equality issues as well. People living with disabilities, for example, hugely important that their rights are realised. Girls, boys in the education system, are their rights being realised? So that's the sort of work I've been doing over the course of the past few years.
Nice. Now you're visiting TNT. Tell us what's on the agenda for your visit.
Yes, so absolutely delighted to be here. I hope you can still detect a sort of hint of my Trini accent.
I was hoping that you didn't bring it in yet, but yes, you can tell the people that you're Trini born and raised. Yes.
Absolutely. So hopefully, you can still get it in there.
Yes.
So it is an absolutely delight to be here, to be visiting Trinidad and Tobago, to doing a range of things. One, we've got a very strong bilateral relationship between the UK and Trinidad and Tobago. So it's about strengthening that bilateral relationship more broadly, but really focusing as well on issues of gender equality over the course of this visit. Yeah. So meeting with a range of people, from government ministers through to those involved in civil society as well. Yeah. Here today, and we'll be in Tobago tomorrow.
Now, gender equality, you're going to be having discussions about that throughout your visit, but why do you think it was important to visit now?
Yes, it's important, I think, for a number of reasons. One, well, tomorrow is International Day of the Girl. Right. I think your previous speaker was talking about the fact that today is Mental Health Day.
Yes, it is.
And, usually there is a connection between the fact that if women are abused, violated, many times it leads to, mental health issues. So there's a connection between those 2 days. So tomorrow is International Day of the Girl, so fantastic to be here ahead of that. And I think what we've seen as well is that in the aftershock of the pandemic, we've had a significant increase globally, here in Trinidad as well as globally, on violence against women and girls. So again, my visit here is to sort of raise awareness about that, and as well to exchange views and ideas about how we tackle these issues around gender equality and particularly violence against women and girls. Nice.
Now, you did let us slip earlier that you are Trini born and raised. You would have attended St. Francois College. I see you're in your green, not sure if that's a coincidence. So if you're repping...
That's actually, well, when I attended St. Francois, it was black and white. But anyway, well, there we are.
Now.
Well, it's that long ago I was there, but anyway, it is green now. So
yes.
Yes.
And so you attended St. Francois College. You were born and grown in Trinidad and Tobago. Tell us about your journey from St. Francois to now being the Gender Envoy. I mean, that is a big transition. How did that happen?
Yes, absolutely. So look, St. Francois was very much part and parcel of that journey. Yeah. But can I just start a little bit before?
Sure.
Because I think that journey really started with my parents, and particularly with my mother, who I think she probably wouldn't have chosen the label of being a feminist, but in fact she was, because she was such a strong advocate for the rights of women and girls in the way she lived her life, for example. But St. Francois, being in an environment with other young women, with inspirational female teachers, was definitely part of, my developing the values and what will shape what I do moving forward. So after St. Francois Girls College, I went off to Canada to university, and then I got a scholarship, went to the UK, and look, Kimberly, then life took over, right? Married, etc. Ended up a British citizen and working for the British government.
Wow, that is amazing. Now, what people don't see is the trials and tribulations, right, that you would have experienced. And so they see, this Trini working for the England government, but just backtrack a bit. What are some of the challenges you had to overcome to get to this position now?
Yes, so I think, like so many of us, we do experience challenges. One, being a woman, in many instances about, where's your place, where do you fit within all of this? So many times you probably are put to the sidelines because of your gender, because of who you are. Being a black woman, there's also that issue as well. But for me, it's also about digging deep. And I remember just very recently, Michelle Obama said, when they go low, you go high. So I think you've got to step back, remind yourself of the contribution that you've got to make, remind yourself of where that strength and resilience comes from, and then you go again.
When they go low, you go
you
high.
go high, absolutely.
Now, you were recently awarded the OBE, the Order of the British Empire. How did that come about?
So, well, actually, that was quite a shock. And I remember where I was standing in my home, in my flat in the UK, when I got the phone call to say that I'd been nominated for the Order of the British Empire. And in a sense, what it was is a recognition of many, many years of work, primarily in international development. And as I said, more recently on issues of girls' education and gender equality. So, yeah, quite honoured to have received that earlier this year.
Now, when you got the award, did you have to meet the Queen? Did she pin it on you, or how does it work?
So it was Princess Anne who did it. The Queen was actually, I live in Scotland actually, so the Queen was in residence at Holyrood Palace at the time.
Right.
She was at the time far too weak, of course, to do any of the investiture ceremonies. It was done by Princess Anne, and Princess Anne did pin it, which was quite special because Princess Anne is also a big advocate, particularly of education and the education of girls.
Yeah, I think now what we're also seeing as well is more young women, tending to study gender and equality and that sort of thing.
Sure.
But then there's also the still traditional values in terms of parents wanting their children to be doctor, lawyer, and different types of professions. How do you, or what advice do you have for parents who are seeing their children going down that route, and they might be, they might be a bit averse for them studying gender because they may not see the value in studying gender and equality? What advice do you have for the children? And on the same vein, what advice do you have for the parents? So children.
Parents and children. Well, the mother of two children myself, I think at some point you've got to allow kids to make those choices. And maybe those choices will be the sort of so-called traditional routes of a doctor or lawyer, etc. Or it may be another route. I remember when I started off and said to my parents what I was interested in, my mum saying to me, "Are you going to earn a living doing that?"
And that is the question. A lot of parents,
and I said, well, let's see. So, I've been sustaining myself for a number of years, so I think it worked out. So I think fundamentally it's about allowing them to make those choices. The difficult thing about parenting is being a sort of backseat driver and sort of trying to guide them as to, where they should go. But I think fundamentally they've got to follow their passions, follow what they're interested in, and go from there.
And for the children who are thinking about it, what route do you think they should take to get there?
Well, I think there are a number of different routes. I think from now just start thinking about the issues. Why is it, what are you seeing around you that means that men and women have got different roles in society? And what it is that means that sometimes women are not getting the deal that they should have in society. So start raising your consciousness and your awareness about those issues, and then take it from there. I think there are lots of fantastic courses here at universities, as well as, if you have the opportunity to go abroad, of course, that is also an option. Or it may not be university at all. You may want to join a civil society organisation and advocate from that particular place.
Now, Ms. Herbert, this is a two-parter. How long are you going to be in TNT, and what do you miss most about your country?
Yes, I can't believe I haven't been here for over 10 years.
Wow.
And I just realised that when I was looking at some old photos before I arrived, and the date came up. But of course, COVID took about 3 years of that.
Yes.
So what do I miss most? The usual look, the food and the variety of food. And though we tried to replicate that in the UK or the US, it's still not the same. The taste is different. But for me, it's about the vibrancy and the colour of Trinidad and Tobago. And it started for me on this trip when I was sitting in the, having something to eat at Gatwick Airport, and the guy opposite to me was on the phone. And he had the broadest, most wonderful Trinidadian accent. And I smiled all the way through, and I thought, right, my journey has started home. So I miss that vibrancy. I miss that colour and everything else about this place, which is quite unique.
How long will you be in TNT?
Well, just until tomorrow evening. So just until, yes, I know it's quite a short one.
Yes.
So it is an official visit. I'm working. But I hope to be back next year on a sort of personal time and spend a lot more time here.
Okay, because I'm hoping that you might still be able to sneak in a bit of TNT before you go back home.
Well, I did a bit of that, actually, Kimberly, because I arrived on Friday night. I spent time with family over the weekend, so I did get to Maracas Beach and had a bacon shark.
Right, and I like that you're still saying bacon shark and not shark and bake. Excellent,
no, it's got to be bacon shark, isn't it? Right, and I did sneak in some doubles in there and that sort of thing. So yes, absolutely, I did that over the weekend.
Of course. Now, just transitioning back to your work in gender and equality, do you think, because we have a growing migrant population here, and so do you think women who are displaced, do you think they stand a greater risk of experiencing that sort of inequality or in that basically gender discrimination?
Yes, no, absolutely, and I think you'll see it here and you'll see it in many other parts of the world. There's some women who are particularly vulnerable if you are displaced, if you're a refugee woman, if you're displaced within your own country. Absolutely, there's a higher risk of them being abused, and in fact they are more vulnerable. Indeed, towards at the end of November, the 28th and 29th of November, we'll be hosting a big global conference in the UK on conflict-related sexual violence. So women who have been displaced, or people who've been displaced as a result of conflict or crisis, and the vulnerability that they experience within those contexts, and really trying to draw attention to that, which is hugely important. So yes, I think for women here who are migrant women who have been displaced, we must pay particular attention to their vulnerabilities and how to support them.
Now, Ms. Herbert, another group as well is the Lgbtqia community.
Yes.
Do you think as well they are more, do they face that sort of gender inequality, that sort of discrimination as well because of their sexual preference?
Yes, they do, and I think there's global evidence to show that. This is just not me sitting here this morning making this up. There's global evidence around that. We've recently as well conducted a study in the UK around violence against LGBTQI plus community, and it is much higher, and it is pretty brutal. Yes, so again, another area where we've got to shine the spotlight and think about how do we respond, because fundamentally it is about people's rights. Fundamentally it is about people being able to be, really.
Yeah. Now, as we think of policy, how do we move from policy to action? What exactly can we do? And this is apart from government, globally, what can we do to help these vulnerable groups?
So I think there's a range of things. Of course, the policy context is important, because what you're doing is sort of making a statement as to as a government, for example, as to what is important and what how inclusive you want to be as a society. So that's hugely important. And then on the ground, working in communities. A lot of work has shown that for you to tackle issues of discrimination, be it the fact that you're a woman or LGBTQI plus or whatever, in communities, working in communities, to have those conversations, to think about the mindset, to begin to shift those mindsets. It's painstaking work. It's not an overnight fix. So I would say in terms of action on the ground, a lot of it has to come from that community work, and changing those mindsets and having those conversations. All of us getting into an uncomfortable place and then working it through from there. So that would be my number one in terms of action on the ground.
And before we close, tell me what's next for Miss Alicia Herbert, OBE.
What's next for Alicia Herbert, OBE? So look, you know what I mean? I have, we talked a little bit about my journey this morning, from Trinidad, through Canada to the UK, and I've been posted to many different parts of the world. I've been quite fortunate and privileged, actually, in that sense. And what I hope to do now, at this particular point in my career, a number of things have come together. I'm in a happy place.
Wow.
Today's Mental Health Day, so I'm in a happy place on that. And just trying to think about, from my years of experience, the knowledge that I've gathered, the experiences that I've had, how do I use that? Even beyond the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, in order to make whatever small change that I can in the world, including here in TNT. So I think, that's probably what's next for me. Not clearly defined yet, but the idea, the concept is there, and hopefully I'll be able to work on that and to build on that.
Now, Ms. Herbert, if you haven't already, one of our soca artists, Lyrical, sang a song called Happy Place. So if you haven't heard it as yet, I think it's going to be the song for today, since you are in a happy place. Absolutely. But let me just tell you, it was a pleasure having you in our morning show. It was a pleasure to just, have this discussion with you about gender equality, coming from St. Francois, going and just making a difference. Being the gender envoy is no small feat. And I want to thank you so much for joining us on our morning show this morning.
Thank you very much, Kimberly, and it's absolutely a delight to be here.